So I'm talking today about C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy, but starting with the last book, That Hideous Strength. Part of the reason I am talking about this one first is because I found this the most compelling of the three, and you don't actually need to have read the first two to actually be able to read this book, because there is some discontinuity and there's definitely a shift in tone. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong, the first two Space Trilogy books were written before World War II. And I mean, Lewis was in England, so there's that. And That Hideous Strength was written after World War II. So there was a big shift in politics and in just a conception of what was going on in the world, because some of the stuff that was going on before and during World War II did not become evident to those in England. Specifically, I'm referring to what the Nazi regime was really up to. Did not become evident until after the war. And then there was the whole issue of the Cold War afterwards. That said, I want to focus on one particular character in this book, and that's Mark Studdard. He is one of the two main characters. The other main character is Jane, his wife. And the thing about Mark, he is a sociologist who's at a small, I guess I'll say provincial college in some kind of rural, rustic England, is the feeling one gets. Lewis is very good at setting a scene, especially when it's set in pastoral England, as it were. He doesn't seem a very urban kind of guy, Lewis. Studdard desperately wants to be special. He wants to be on the inner circle. It starts out with the college he's in, and he's part of the progressive faction. Okay, whatever that means. It's not clear what progress or what goals they want. And that comes to where he ends up next, which is NICE, which is the National Institute for Controlled Experimentation. And again, the goals of NICE, other than, say, social engineering, social control, it's not really clear what their goals are either. But there is a parallel between what goes on in the college, where Mark thinks he knows what's going on in terms of the internal politics, and with what goes on in the NICE. When he moves from the college to the institute, he becomes disoriented, and he wants to pin down what his place is in this new hierarchy. And it reminds me of, I think the name is Daniel Doyce, but don't quote me on this, in Little Dorrit. A character in a Dickens novel, where he goes to the Circumlocution Office, which is a bureaucracy in London, and wants to know. And it's Clennam, Arthur Clennam specifically, who goes in asking about something else, and then he follows up for Daniel. The NICE has this similar squishy feel to it, in that for a very long time in the novel, you don't know what's going on because Mark doesn't know what's going on. The main guy that you see is Wither, and which is a great name for his character, who is like a bowl full of mush when you're trying to come up against him. Mark is trying to figure out, what am I supposed to be doing exactly? What department am I in? Who is over me? What's the hierarchy? And Wither doesn't want to be pinned down. There's another character who's far more straightforward, the Fairy, a woman who is a very explicit sadist, and it's a bit untoward. It would not fly too much today in terms of her characterization. But here's the thing. The way Mark comes to corruption is because he really has no values. He has no inner core. There's nothing actually particularly special about him. His issue is he wants to feel special, not normal, not ordinary. But by the end of the book, he realizes the importance of normalcy, of letting normal, ordinary people live their normal, ordinary lives, and that there's a value to that. It's his wife, Jane, who is actually special, and that's the real reason NICE picks him up, because they want his wife. And again, I don't think he ever actually gets that the only reason they got him was to get at Jane, his wife. It's not clear in the novel. Jane knows, and he gets an inkling of it. But in a lot of ways, even by the end of the novel, his perspective is he's still in the dark, and he's got a little bit of a clue of where he went wrong. Anyway, I will do the next one, Paralandra, which is number 2, next, and it's very different in tone from That Hideous Strength.